Back
Let's see if I
again.
can mess anything besides testing. Only
It's
Rumble
only
Studio
on.
participants can see this.
Well, I made you moderator, so I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Click the drop down if you should see other things. Anyway,
there is no drop down, dude.
on the messaging
It just
thing to
says
the left.
message/private,
Oh, weird.
and then a send icon,
We'll have to play with it here.
and then there's a I don't know.
Bitcoin Liberty Live, episode 47. We're back again, as we are every week. Happy to be here, smiling because Bitcoin's uh, thriving. Price, price irregardless. Everything moves in that
Regardless of price.
direction.
Yeah,
There is no fiat price, really. It's just a market where people trade it, and Bitcoin continues to succeed
yeah.
and eat all else,
So
as opposed to the what appears to be all of Europe. Apparently, did you see the stuff about the euro, the digital euro?
oh
Uh,
yeah,
Yesterday on Noster, somebody had shared a video that I thought was a spoof or an AI generated fake thing at first. I thought, did somebody make this as a joke?
yeah,
And I watched it and like, this looks kind of legit. Like, no, seriously, we're marketing the digital euro.
yeah.
Uh, Matthew Cratter made a video about it released today where he goes into it. I haven't watched it, but my God, a digital euro and like share with your friends, buy coffee with it. Um, everything's tracked.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I've written about that in the past, and I see a bunch of people sharing clips from uh, Everett Ferguson has been sharing a bunch of clips, going, "Hey, they're saying it's slavery. They're telling you out loud they're going to enslave you, and this and that and the other thing."
Yeah.
And I think a lot of those fears are kind of overblown, if I'm honest. The is it possible at some future time that they would want to control your meat consumption or whatever by restricting your ability to buy it? But like they played a clip of some guy talking about, making sure that people can only spend this money on food or this or that, the other thing. They were talking about welfare recipients. So they took the conversation completely out of context. And, from a government standpoint, you go, do we want people trading their food stamps so they can go buy booze at, 60 cents on the dollar or something? No,
Sure.
that's probably not the best use of welfare dollars and welfare food stamps and whatever. So with a digital euro, you could say, well, if you're on welfare, you can only use these to do this, and you can't trade them to other people. So you can get your booze and get your fixes, but you can buy baby formula and you can buy, healthy fruits and vegetables or whatever.
Right.
So there's that aspect of it, which, has those draconian sort of overtones to it. And yet when I look at it, I go, there's like 80% of all transactions in the United States right now settle via credit card, and that's all on those same type of rails. If they wanted to restrict your ability to buy beef or assign carbon credits to you, or all those little like control fear things that people talk about when they talk about CBDCs, where they could do that right now. I mean, there's nothing stopping them from like taking these credit cards and restricting your transactions, and they already do it. Like if you remember back in the day, you could buy Bitcoin with a credit card. Can't do it anymore. Nobody can do it, and that is that same level of control. They could very easily just go, well, you're not allowed to buy beer with your credit card. You're not allowed to. You need to have a social credit score that's tied to your regular financial credit score, and that's how you're allowed to spend your credit card money,
Yeah,
or
and
your
it's
debit card money.
so it's like it's one thing if you've got rails set up that can do all this stuff and are for a system for say the welfare or paying your taxes or for businesses to conduct business with the government. Great, fine. But if it's kind of like this is the money now, like there is now theoretically, not that many people use any alternative or think of free money, but you could freedom money. So the idea being like, well, I know that I don't have to be on that system, even though I trust it every day and just kind of use it. But if it becomes like there is no out, this is the system. Oh, we've been captured.
Well, we already have been. That's my whole point. Is like there's
Yeah, that's
nothing.
true.
All it is an efficiency for the banking system, but they already have us completely 100% captured by the
We pretty
fiat
much are
system.
captured.
Yeah, 100%. Like there's nothing stopping them from, like, look at the Canadian truckers. It's a prime example of like, oh, we're just going to freeze you out of fucking everything. And they just did it
Yeah,
with a stroke of a pen. They didn't need to go and create some new protocol to do it. They didn't need a CBDC to lock all those people out of their bank accounts. They just locked them out. Said, well, you're financially isolated now. And they can do that here in the United States, no problem. Zero barriers to entry there other than the courts. And, when it comes, I mean, obviously people would kind of get pissy about it. But, in Europe, like they're already so close to that regime anyway. But, it's all just this Marxist, communist. It's the old school Marxist communist playbook of trying to just destroy society in an anti human kind of way. And, so the CBDC, I think the current regime that's trying to push it forward is they're more sober and practical than people give them credit for, but yet what they're trying to create is an extension of their same shitty policies that ultimately end up right where people are worried that it's going to go without acknowledging that they're already there. Like they've already crossed that Rubicon. They're already in the realm of, you know, you are already under the financial thumb of the sovereign. So, except unless
yeah,
you're, of course,
yeah. Just it's classic communism as we've had, and like just yesterday, I was describing Bitcoin related stuff to a coworker who had honest questions and interest, and kind of just rehashing stuff we talked about over a while. But they had some new, fresh questions because of news or the price. And I started to describe it because they go, well, but it's anonymous, right? And I start to describe the nature of that, and I just kind of I started feeling that like, yeah, how would someone like you, thinking you want privacy, do this in that way? And that's like, I mean, it's like some of us can do it in ways that we want to with work and process. And
Mhm.
for average general others, when I describe it, and they're thinking, oh, I heard it's this, I heard it can do that, or it's privacy, right? And it's like, you're basically you're captured. You are captured.
Yeah,
No, for you, no. Sorry, but
right.
and then even as we get Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, pro Bitcoin, right? Pro kind of like free market.
Mhm.
There's a article came out 2 days ago. I just saw today. The Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN, has lowered the currency transaction report threshold from $10,000 to 200
Yeah.
so this is for Americans in 30 zip codes in California and Texas. So this is to combat cartel related money laundering. So it's sort of like, oh, it's not a broad sweeping like we're going to monitor all the money now, but for the people in those counties, for a reason,
Mhm.
it is $200.
Yeah.
Oh man,
Well, as I've pointed out in the past, that $10,000 threshold they're talking about, they set in 1970,
mm-hmm.
right? So if you look at the value of $10,000 in 1970, today it's like 150 grand, right? So,
Yeah,
so the original threshold was if you're doing any cash transactions above $100,000, we
like a
want to
lot
know.
of money. Yeah.
Yeah, or $70,000 or whatever it is. I don't know. I'm going to find out exactly what it is. But if I can spell. But the point is, that original threshold was set at a very, 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 very high level to combat tax evasion, right? And
Right.
today they bandy that about as if like they as if there's been no change in the value of money. So it's become very convenient. Like the reverse has happened for uh, people that want to do like Second Amendment stuff. Like if you file a Form 1 on an ATF tax stamp, that tax stamp was set in 1930, right? $200 so you can get a machine gun, or $200 so you can get a suppressor, or $200 so you can get a short barrel rifle, or whatever. $200 in 1930 was like buying a house. Like it was so hard to pay that tax. And it
Right.
was designed that way to keep people from making machine guns and making it easy to do that kind of thing. Today, $200 is like, well, that's a meal and a movie.
That
So,
you went grocery shopping.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, like that's 1 week's groceries for me solo by
Right.
myself. So yeah, $200 to get a machine gun? Hell yeah, I'll pay that. Like, here you go, guys. Yeah, like hook me up, man. I want to buy a machine gun. I want to make a machine gun. This sounds like fun. So, that has reversed that sort of thing, and it's nice that the feds haven't upped that to keep up with inflation. But the problem is in the reverse, when you're talking about money laundering and all this nonsense, that $10,000 threshold, the real price of that commodity is $78,000. Real value and consumption, $91,000. The labor value is $90,000. The income value is $156,000, and the economic share is $258,000. So it's somewhere between $80,000 and $250,000 was the reporting threshold in 1970. Today they just lowered it to $200, which
Two
would have
hundred
been like,
dollars and yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, that literally would have been like, I mean, if we want to go back to 1970, what's $200 in 1970? Let's just punch some numbers here in this bitchin' computer. So that would have been the equivalent of 1,500 and between 1,500 and $5,000 today in today's dollars, right?
Right.
So if we reverse that, and make the modern thing, let's go 2023, which is the only year they can do it, 1970. So the equivalent value of $200 in 1970 would have been $20. So they're literally passing a rule right now for these. Those are called high intensity money laundering corridors. There's some term they use for it, some acronym, but it's a
Yeah.
high intensity drug trafficking area or some nonsense like that. And they designate these little areas like that. But what they've effectively done, if we want to just keep hanging on to 20 or the $200 threshold in 1970 terms, they just said any transaction over $20 you need to report. And you go, well, that sounds pretty ominous, doesn't it? Like that means
Hmm.
literally everything you do is being tracked.
Yeah.
So to say that they're using this to combat cartels and all this kind of, it's just complete utter BS, dude. Like there's no evidence that shows any of these things are effective. There's no evidence that shows any of these, schemes that they come up with are having any impact on the operations of drug cartels, fraudsters, any of that kind of stuff. What it does do is it cements the idea that, hey, we are allowed to monitor everything you do. And they just keep ratcheting it down, thinking they're going to somehow fix their problem, but they never will. It's the most
Yeah.
annoying regime on planet Earth. And
Well,
people just take it.
yeah, and it's more of some of the same we've always seen, like where Biden dropped a scrutinizing threshold to like $600, and okay, so now we've designated cartels as terrorists. We're going after the terrorists. I don't have a problem with that part necessarily, and there's ways to do that. But in that process, you're going to just probably, for now, there's nothing more permanent than a temporary government solutions to this kind of stuff, and
Right,
it's an endless war. Are we going to win against the terrorists? No, this is a forever war.
right.
And until we annex Mexico and the military moves in and we make Mexico a police state, until we can come out of that, we're not beating the terrorists because the Mexican government is the cartel. And so it's endless. And then in the meantime, so forever now, maybe a big swath of south end of America there is got their groceries being can be scrutinized, all the banking, everything. So
Yeah,
it's like it's kind of another creeping step in the same direction we saw under what I thought was Biden. And
right. Yeah.
even as Scott Bessent is like all pro crypto, pro Bitcoin type free market stuff, and then we see this, and I'm like, oh, here we go.
Yeah, those guys, they can't help themselves, dude. Like once
Yeah,
they get in there, and they're the thing about like the cartels and stuff like that, they want to go, oh, it's China and Canada is pushing all this fentanyl in the United States. If you want to get real libertarian about it, you go, well, why don't we look at the demand for that in the United States? They wouldn't supply it if we weren't begging for it constantly, right?
yeah,
So the problem is they're still trying the prohibition playbook, and just like prohibition, they started rationing down on all kinds of freedoms and all that sort of stuff at the time. Prohibition doesn't work, dude. Like if there's a demand for something, that's going to be filled. Period. Like 100% of the time. Singapore, the island nation of Singapore, has the death penalty for drug trafficking. You get caught smuggling drugs in that country, they don't just flog you, they chop your head off, right? And every year, people get killed in Singapore for smuggling drugs. Why? Because there's a demand for it, and people are willing to risk their lives to fulfill that demand because the premium you get with such high risk is enormous, right? So, as long as you incentivize that kind of financial activity, it's going to occur, period.
Yeah.
And one of the things I wrote about in my money laundering paper was they designated the downtown Los Angeles fashion district, or not the fashion district. It's like a wholesale district, right? The downtown Los Angeles wholesale district. You can go to downtown Los Angeles. My uncle used to do this. He would go drive from New Mexico to California and load up a box van full of like slightly outdated gangster stuff, like pot leaves and, like whatever the little street kids like to wear, baggy pants and all this kind of shit. And then you bring it back here and sell it. Now, the thing is New Mexico's, 6 months to a year behind in fashion trends from the coasts, at least amongst the urban set. So they're great sellers that he could get at a discount in Los Angeles. But meanwhile, what the cartels did was they went, hey, you know what? I bet you we could just take all this cash that we have and go buy a bunch of clothes and handbags and I mean nothing like fancy, just shit that they could put on a truck, send it down to Mexico, give it to all their local buddies down in Mexico, and then when they sell that, they've now laundered their money, right? They took cash in America, they bought some neat things, they put it on a truck. Nobody is going to blink twice at a truck full of, women's dresses or men's slats or whatever, but then they just distribute these all around. And it does a twofold thing for the Mexican economy. Like in all these little towns that are all these people that are on the take that are selling this stuff, they get a percentage of those sales, 5 or 10% or something like that. For inventory, they get for free, and then they just got to give the rest of the money to the cartel. So for like a 5% fee, they can just launder all their money cross border, no problem. And in some cases, they're probably making a profit because they got a nice little markup on it when it goes down to Mexico. So
Yep.
the FinCEN people came in, cracked down on that. Treasury came down, cracked down on that whole market. And for like 6 months, like every single transaction that occurred in the Los Angeles wholesale district was monitored by FinCEN and Treasury. And you go, okay, so what did you guys do? Did you stop like the primary means of the cartels laundering money by clamping down on this thing? Or did you just plug one hole in a colander and go, look at what a great job we did? Meanwhile, you stomped on every single person that did any business whatsoever. They went through, they were grabbing people's books, they were auditing every single business, they were saying where, I mean, it was just insanely draconian response to one, probably a fraction of the cartel's money being laundered. Like, and the point I made in the paper was like, do you know how much money they laundered this way? No. Do you know how long it was going on? No. Do you know if there's any other methods that they're using that you haven't detected yet? No. But you guys are going around parading like we shut down this major money laundering avenue by clamping down on the freedom of law-abiding Americans in Los Angeles.
Yep.
Yay. I mean, it's just, oh,
It's the old, yeah, like Benjamin Franklin's quote about trading freedom for security. And we continually are like, and like whether it's the FBI, the DEA, the DOJ, they'll hold up an example story like we caught this one, and it's like, oh great, round of applause, we caught, you know, some big case.
right.
Good to do, at the expense of all the unseen, unheard government tentacles into your daily day to day life and harassing people that weren't doing anything wrong, yada
Right.
yada yada yada. But you caught these guys, and
Right.
I've got a couple of stories about where um, related to drugs, fentanyl. I work with people every day who are deeply addicted, and the over the years where I work, the clientele, the addictions have shifted from, oh, okay, you're using marijuana. Well, that's legal now. Okay, it was meth or heroin for a while. Depending on the price between meth and heroin, depending on the price, people switched back and forth, and just it
Yeah.
was what they could afford and what they could get readily. With fentanyl now and other things, we've seen xylazine and these horse barbiturate stuff, and it's just like, holy
Right.
crap. Um, we're seeing new drugs, hard drugs, The distribution in the supply is messy. I was so not yesterday, Thursday. I spent most of the day helping get someone deeply addicted to fentanyl, because fentanyl is now in everything, and you don't
Right.
even know what. I've had guys that were just meth users, and now they're hooked on fentanyl, and they cannot get off it now that they want to.
Yeah.
It's too deeply addictive.
Oh
I
yeah.
spent all day Thursday getting him into detox, and we drove on a main highway south towards California all the way to this detox center, and for some treatment that he desperately wanted and needed. And he was just like, I don't know how to kick this. He's a good guy, and he cannot kick this drug.
Right.
So we're getting him help as we're driving. Um, all along the way for hours, every 10 to 20 minutes, we pass a big old blacked out window bus heading north, uh, Transporte Norte or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And how many people are on these buses heading north to Spokane or wherever? I mean, like, it's kind of like me and a coworker, we're doing a transport, and there's another bus, and then 10 minutes later, there's another bus,
Yeah.
and our anecdotal law enforcement info from even years past is that at one point there was an informant on one of these buses, and he'd let local authorities know, and then police would be looking for one of these many buses and pull one over for some PC they could follow, tail it for a while, and pull it over for something. And then it's like everybody out, and there'd be variously some people, or a number of people on the bus. Everybody, all the bags out, everybody get your bags. And in the end, everybody had their bags, but there were two big luggage cases that were left. Whose are these? No one knows. Open them up, full of drugs.
Yeah.
So they're getting moved. What is the
Yeah.
source? Cartels down in Mexico, crossing the border, doing these, like, what, tour buses or transport buses or what? If you don't
Yeah.
even go into the immigration thing, who knows? Drugs, and who knows what else. So they're on there. And then what's the source? Cartels. Where do the cartels get stuff? What, China, precursors from China. It's like, so anyway, that war has been going on and attacking America. Now we have locally, I was talking to another partner, a professional partner, about the nature of people in our community whose addictions have changed, and getting help is much harder now. Getting off these drugs is much harder. So we had a thought experiment. I was talking to a professional partner that provides drug addiction counseling stuff. And it was like, thought experiment here. What if somehow the US, or however it happened, we were just hugely successful in infiltrating and crushing the cartels, and the supply dried up and stopped? Say we stopped the fentanyl from coming. What would start to happen in these communities where we have all these people hooked on it, and they don't get it anymore, and the meth isn't good enough? Heroin doesn't. You have to take enough heroin to possibly die to keep your maintenance going. What would happen? You're going to see people that were they're now hooked on fentanyl. They're maintaining on fentanyl. From pill to pill, they go from, oh, that I wasn't high enough, to, oh my God, that almost killed me. I literally had a guy die a week ago that way.
Oof.
We've had many overdose deaths this year,
Yeah.
and so that there's a tragedy for you. What happens to all these others when there was no more fentanyl? They're going to lose their damn minds. They're going to be sick. They're going to go crazy. They're going to do what they got to do to detox without the treatment available. Um, Property crimes or behavioral health issues in the community. It's just a mess. So, like,
Yeah.
whether we now, ideally, we're not treating the symptoms and searching people's bank accounts to look for transactions on the tail end. We're getting to the root source of the problem. Where's that? Down in Mexico or back into China? Um,
Well, that's not the root source of the problem, dude. That the root source of the problem is in the United States. Like to like that the idea that they're just somehow just flooding our streets with this stuff for no reason to assault us, I go, well, that's not quite true. Like they wouldn't send that stuff here if there wasn't a huge demand for it. And the people inside the United States that are peddling these drugs are the people that have created this crisis because they go, hey man, how much is the heroin? Oh, it's, $50 a kilo. Well, how much is this fentanyl? Well, you can get 10 times the doses for half the cost of heroin.
Yeah.
And people love it. Oh, well, I'll take that because I can make way more money this way.
Yeah.
And
It's money.
so the drug dealers here in the United States are the ones that started cutting fentanyl into everything. And they're the ones that started distributing all the fentanyl to everybody. And they're the ones that got everybody hooked on fentanyl. So to say the problem's coming from Mexico, I go, well, the drugs are coming from Mexico. The problem is a United States problem. The problem is a demand side problem, not a supply side problem.
Yeah.
And the
That's
second
true.
if you could go down and invade Mexico and shut down every single possible trade route from Mexico, build a hyperbarian, ionic bubble at the Mexican border, all you're going to do is what is currently occurring in the United States right now is these people in the United States are buying these precursor chemicals as well, and they're importing them into the United States, and then they're just mixing them. It's like trying to stop people from building their own guns. You can't do it, right? Because you
Yeah.
go, what are we going to do? Ban all aluminum? We're going to ban steel tubes?
Right.
You can't ban precursor chemicals. And the second they come up with some recipe for banning this chemical, some chemist somewhere will go, oh, well, if you just move this molecule over here, same basic idea, but, and you can get these precursor chemicals for even cheaper. So here you go. I mean, yeah, 50% of the people
Yeah.
are going to die, but you can make a lot of money in the meantime. So
Yeah.
it's
Full,
just an
full
interesting
circle on the
thing.
problem. Some of the deep roots of the problem is the economy behind it, the demand for it, all these addicted people, and you could look at it at a deep level as the money, a cultural phenomenon we have on incentives, time preference, quality of life, life goals, and how a lot of people their incentives have gotten tighter and tighter into just the moment.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
culturally, yeah,
we're basically cattle in a centralized feeding operation, dude. Like, and even the thing we're doing right now, broadcasting this thing out to the world, if we were better at it, our whole purpose here would be to get dopamine hits from people so they get addicted and watch us, right?
yeah,
And I mean that's the new business model right now for everything. Can you deliver dopamine in sufficient quantities to keep people hooked on your thing? And that's true for our food industry. That's true for our, you know, pharmaceutical industry. That's true for the intention industry. That's true for all this shit. Movies have been doing that for 80 years. They want you to get that little dopamine hit, so you go back and go, "Ooh, I had a great experience going to the movies." And then when they started incorporating fiat food into that, man, they just ramped that up. So all through the 80s and 90s, like guys like you and me were sitting there going, "Yum!" Some sort of slop flavored corn product going into my face, and some more like, whatever what was that stuff called, the high fructose corn syrup flavored
yeah,
food like substances. That all got tied into our ability to vicariously live through a story on the screen. But now that's so magnified by algorithms and platforms like X and Facebook
yeah,
and all that kind of stuff. Like it's endemic, man. So
yeah. We are all driven by dopamine, and so yeah, managing that, just digital technology, it feeds that dopamine for all
yeah,
of us, for
100%.
sure.
So when you get to those people that are hardcore addicts, and I remember from, I published a paper in the International Journal of Drug Control Policy or something like that. But the thing is, there's a chronic subset of users. Like, I think it's about 60 or 70% of people that take opioids. Like, if you go get codeine for your toothache or whatever, there's a healthy percentage of people that get nauseous from it and they don't like it, right? It helps alleviate their pain in the short term, but they go, oh God, I don't like this stuff. So they take it for 3 or 4 days. Or if there's someone like me, like I'm hypersensitive to that stuff. If I remember the first time I took codeine because I had my wisdom tooth taken out, I was sick for 3 days, dude. Like I was just throwing up constantly, and I take another pill and I didn't realize they were related. But at the end of it, I was like, I just don't like this stuff. This, like, all I did was just feel like I was groggy all the time. And as soon as I'd wake up, I'd have to throw up. So the likelihood of me becoming a hardcore addict is low, not impossible. Like I could work my way through it somehow. But there is that, I think it's about 20-25% of users, the first time they get an opioid, they go, this is the best thing ever. And there's something about their biochemistry that just goes, this is better than sex. This is better than my kids. This is better. I would do this every day, all day, as long as I possibly could, because they're just that rat on the lever, just like, this is good, 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 good. And those are the people. And if you combine that with someone who's like high achiever, low IQ, you end up with these really, really chronically addicted people because they're high conscientiousness. They want to go out and be productive, and there's nothing for them to do because they're just too dumb.
Yeah,
So
well,
that
yeah,
you mix those two together, and you have what you deal with daily, basically.
yeah, and they don't have life quality incentives or goals that feed them in a healthy way. Like you've heard of there's a TED talk and many talks in a book, I think, by Johann Hari. He wrote he's given talks and written things about concept of rat park. There was a
Oh yeah,
study done about rat park, and so in one study it was like you have rats in a cage, and you give them they've got their food and their water and their lifestyle in this cage, and then you offer them heroin or whatever it was. It was a drug that makes you feel great,
right,
and the rats suddenly, obviously, switched from the food to nothing but heroin until they all died.
right,
And it's so like, yep, it's addiction. You will just choose heroin. And then they did another experiment where they created Rat Park. And so instead of being just in a cage where there's nothing else to do and the rats are just sitting around like in a cage, like, well, what else am I going to do? They had Rat Park where there was like toys and games and places to explore and things to do. And rats will, they'll play and they like to. I mean, they're like little creatures that like to enjoy curious things in life in their own way. And so they're running on running on wheels and climbing on stuff and hiding in tubes and chasing each other. And they have all this space to do all this stuff. And they're having sex and they're like living a good life. And then they introduced the heroin, and some of the rats would try it, and then they'd feel zonked and whatever and come out of it. And then they'd be like, And they found that the rats did not, they chose food over the heroin because they could go and play and live their happy rat life. And if you took that pill, you were like detached from all of that.
right.
So the rats did not choose the drugs. So in our society, when it's like you have a community or culture where it's like, well, what else am I going to do? Like life kind of sucks, or I don't have creative outlets or pro-social connections in life. And then, yeah, people turn to drugs to fill that void. So in our
Yeah,
own rat park.
yeah, basically. I mean, and again, there is a subset of people that can't help it, right? Like they are so dialed into that, to that experience of an opioid, especially, that they just can't escape it. It's a subset of the population. And like I said, if you mix that with someone who's like high conscientiousness, they really want to be productive, they really want to do things, but they're low enough IQ that there's not a lot for them to do, right? Like if you go, hey, I really want to be a productive person, I love feeling useful. And then you go out and you go, I got fired from McDonald's, right? Like I tried and tried and tried, and everything I did at McDonald's, they just said I was an idiot, and then they fired me. And so, what does that person do to fulfill that need for conscientious activity? They go, I want to
Yeah.
be busy. I want to have things to do. And then they get a drug and they go, oh, this drug feels really good. It makes me feel really good. But the back end side of that is now I have to be really, really productive to acquire that drug. And no one's going to fire me from trying to go criddle my way through a heroin addiction, right? They can go dig through trash cans, they can go steal bicycles. And when you see all those really, really dumb crimes where that really, really dumb guy got caught doing something really, really dumb, you just go, what on earth were you thinking? Why did you think that was a good idea? Because he's probably high conscientiousness, he's addicted to drugs, and that's as far as he could get into the path of like, this is how I can fulfill these needs and stay productive. By I've got this great idea today. The same thing that would have got him fired at McDonald's is the same thing that's going to get him tripped up for trying to steal a bicycle from right in front of the police station, or thinking, I know I've got a great idea, I'm going to go steal license plates off of cop cars or whatever it is. These people get caught doing really dumb shit because of that high conscientiousness drive that makes them very productive and very ineffective at what they're doing. So you put those
Yeah.
two together, it's super, super toxic, man. And you end up with your caseload bogged down by these people because they're just super hyper addicted and super hyper, willing to go out and do what it takes to acquire those drugs. It's for society, it's a really toxic mix. The trick we haven't come up with yet is what do you do with people that are too dumb to really do work? And how do you keep them occupied? How do you give them a life where they're able to be fulfilled without relying on a chemical and then using the back end, acquisition strategies to fulfill themselves?
Mhm. Yeah, and I've met, even in their core being, they're good and smart people, and the addiction is so strong of a hook that even when they're trying to get out of it, unless they can go off somewhere to live somewhere for a while and detox and clean up, they can't get out of it. But yeah, the underlying cultural incentives for some people, it's like they don't see the options, or they don't have them, or they don't find them. And it's in one sense, it's that time preference wreck of a incentive model we have going on in a lot of our society that
Yeah.
drives it too.
Well, it's the fiat thing, right? I mean, this is all
Yeah,
part of
fiat.
the answer, right? And
Yeah,
like right now, if you're productive, like it's super hard to be productive and get ahead, right? Like you can go and really, really bust your tail and end up losing ground. And that's happening to our entire middle class right now, thanks to, the stimulus and all that sort of shit that they did back from 2008 till today. They've really gutted the ability for people to feel productive and maintain, social cohesion, and they're substituting it as quickly as possible with short-term fixes, right? Because that's all highly profitable in our fiat system. And so if you can make a food cheaper that's more addictive, that's obviously going to be better for you if you're Kellogg's, right? And if you can make, the sensation of being productive, if you can boil that down to like, well, let's just sell this guy a $20 a month subscription to Call of Duty or whatever, that's obviously more profitable than, like coming up with some sort of like strategy game or something that takes investment and thought and time. So our entire economy is oriented around, low or high time preference stuff, because fiat is by its design high time preference, right? So that's why I think when people get on a Bitcoin standard, like their life changes overnight because they become savers and they become people
yep,
that have low time preference, and they're not as fixated on this kind of crap. And
yep.
it's a subtle shift in perspective, but it's an enormous shift in outcomes. It's one of the beautiful things about Bitcoin.
Yeah, and that's where I've had interesting conversations, and it takes time over, say, give it a year, where I've if I got somebody off zero, and all they can do is say initially they just put $10 in and sat on it, and then after a while they're kind of going to 10 or $20 a month, and they're sitting on it. And like literally yesterday, conversation I had about, man, the price has dropped, right? Like kind of ever since the jump when Trump was elected, and then random news, but the executive order came out, and it's just kind of climbed down here. And then the conversation from folks being, man, the price is just, I bought and it's just gone down. And it's
Yeah,
that exercise in time preference and managing why are you in this, and practicing the mindset about um, what you're doing, and to back off and sit and experience the lows as well. When you, it's easy to get in when it's going up, and this makes money in your mind, and then when it drops, you have to reconcile what it is again, for real. And
yeah,
then, so it, getting that validation out of Bitcoin when you're watching week by week on a price and you want something out of that, it's an exercise in understanding time preference and what investment is.
yeah,
And it's like, just sit on it, wait, feel it, don't check the price. And if you do, um, let it settle, and uh, it'll take time to understand it. But
yeah. Theoretically. Well, I'll tell you what, I was 100% like I got way right back into trading mode just 2 days ago when I was making that payment to BTC Media for the Vegas conference because
Yeah.
price nuked, right? Like it dropped into the 70s. And I was like, oh, fuck, man, I should have bought this thing at 85,
Yeah.
because I didn't want to spend, the difference in the Bitcoin transaction. I think I spent 4 million sats or something like that to get the ticket or whatever, but or 4.8 million sats or something like that. But I went back to my trading thing and was just like, I was watching price again, just going, okay, well, now is not a good time to pay for my tickets. I'll just wait until this reverses and see if we hit resistance. And then, it was like I was right back into trader mode, trying to optimize my ticket buy, which was why it was
Hmm.
so frustrating when that transaction was like held up. I was like, no, 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 no. This is,
Yeah.
I want this price to get locked in, not whatever is going to come down the pike. But the BTC Media honored the price as it was, and they just said, "Yeah, we got the payment, no problem." But
I
yeah, I mean,
had, go ahead.
no, no, I was just gonna say, I'm grateful that I spent the time I did learning trading because it helps me with stuff like that. Timing.
Yeah, right. Managing you've gone through those feelings time and time again. So you're well experienced in how that can feel, and then
Well,
in
it's also like
managing.
I can avoid the making emotional decisions, right? Like
Yes.
I can just go, I doesn't matter what I think or feel, doesn't matter what like internal voice says. I'm watching this chart, I'm going by these metrics. If these metrics go the right way, I will execute a buy or a sell at that point. If they don't, then I'm not, It just makes it
Yeah.
a lot easier to sit on my hands. So, I keep waiting for the next dip, right? Was
Yeah. Well, and I mean, maybe it was shortly after the halving, I think, last spring, but I remember that thought went through my head. Well, so when like conversations yesterday I had where, ooh, the price is low, and I'm like, okay, here's a comparison for you. Not even a year ago, but last spring near the halving, I went through this realization that like, man, we may never be able to buy Bitcoin under 50,000 again.
hmm.
And before that, it was in the 40s, and I said, it really could break 50 here before long, and it kind of seemed like a little bit of a stretch. Nope, nope, it wasn't. Just in a year, it's like, ooh, why am I feeling like Bitcoin's down when what in a year you've outperformed everything else and you're worried about it?
Oh yeah.
It could drop much more and you're fine. So
Right.
anyway, just sit on it, hold it. I had last night. I rarely have dreams that I remember, and rarely are those really like nightmares. And when I have a nightmare, it's kind of for a reason or whatever. And it might have been like I was in court all day yesterday and testifying and fun little stress. And I end of the day Friday, I was extra worn out and I slept really hard. I had a good sleep, but I slept hard and my brain was apparently stewing on stuff from court and all that. And I had, I don't think I've ever had really a Bitcoin dream. I've had general thoughts and dreams that were related to a Bitcoin kind of fantasy land or something that were good. Just ideas in my head about Bitcoin, but not really a Bitcoin dream. Last night, I had my first really weird, hardcore Bitcoin dream. Well, it was a nightmare. And here's what happened. This may sound weird, but I don't know the context of anything, but for some reason, like my son is playing a game or something, I start playing it. It's like, oh, this is really cool and fun. And I get hooked on this game. It's on my phone, and the dream was I'm playing this game on the phone, and for some reason, like the dopamine hit, I was hooked on this game. Now, everything to do in the game, you had to buy, or you'd have advantages if you bought these tokens, these golden coin Beanie Baby tokens in the game that I don't know what they were, but I got some of those, but you could only buy the tokens using Bitcoin. And I'm like, oh, okay, I have a little. I want to keep playing this game. I'm going to buy more of these tokens with Bitcoin. So I did a little. And then it was like, oh, yes. And the feeling in my dream was like, I'm hooked on this game and I couldn't stop playing. And so then I bought some more tokens and then I bought some more tokens. And there was this feedback loop of like, I can't stop playing this game. And then I'd check my Bitcoin balance as it was dropping. And next thing you know, I'm like a drug addict. I was about to sell the last of my Bitcoin to win this game. And it was like this horrifying nightmare of a feeling where I was reconciling, like, what did I just do? But I can't stop. and it was this crushing like, oh, I'll never get it back. What did I just do? And then I was like rationalizing it in my head. Oh no, it was for reasons. Oh my God, it was. I woke up. It was one of those dreams where when you wake up, you're like, was that real? I hope that wasn't real. And you start to realize, oh, okay, that wasn't real. And it was that relief, like, oh my gosh, that didn't just happen. I
Yeah.
still, I'm still okay. Oh my God, it was the weirdest dream I had.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a
Well, I mean,
nightmare.
yeah, total stress dream, dude. Yeah, man. It's when it. I mean, I kind of had a similar experience in real life though. Like when I paid for that conference table, it was just like I don't. I don't like that I just departed with 4 million sats, dude.
It
Like
doesn't feel right.
dude, like it really went against a lot of like everything that I've been sort of for the last few years. And I was just like, I get that it was sort of a convenient thing. I like that I was participating in the Bitcoin economy, and that's still, I mean, like for most people, 4.8 million sats. I don't know, for most people, maybe that's a lot for some people, maybe it's a little for others. But for me, I was just like, that's a, like I keep in my mind at the back of my head all the time that every single sat I just equate to dollar parity. I go, at some point in the future, this is going to be dollar parity based
I
on
do
what a
that.
dollar can buy right now.
Yep.
So I just paid $5 million to get a table at a fucking conference, and it was just like, I don't know if that's a really good use of that asset, right? Like that is the most expensive conference table I could ever imagine. I go, if I was sitting on $10 million in fiat right now, would I spend 5 million of it to
Oh
go
yeah.
to this conference? I go, absolutely not. But I just did with Bitcoin. So it shows you like even me, who's like diehard, as much diehard as I can possibly be, I still have this weird little like, like rationalize that. Like, it's not like I don't have cash right now. I could have just spent cash on it, but I was just like, well, I want to do Bitcoin. I think it'd be neat to then, and somehow through reasons and just like, I'll just talk myself into parting ways with 4.8 million sats. I go, fuck, man. So now
Yeah.
I've got this like thing. I go, if I get to this conference and I don't make at least 5 million sats, I'm going to be kind of, like a little
Yeah.
just uh,
Yeah.
at that
I
loss of property.
yeah, I think when you do those kinds of transactions, like, and I've done it where I'm always comparing, like, I can part with fiat or use a credit card temporarily, and in my mindset, it fits this box where these are fiat expenses that I budget for and I make up for and whatever, but it's not Bitcoin.
Right.
And for whatever reason, when it's in Bitcoin, even if I can move it back and forth and it's all good and fine, and I don't care, when it's in that other Bitcoin box, it's like I'm parting. I look at the sats like dollar parity, and all of us, I think in 5 or 10 years, every single Bitcoiner out there is going to look back on something they bought in Bitcoin and go, "Wow, I
Oh
spent
yeah.
I spent $1 million on that thing back
Right.
then."
Yeah. Well, there's some
Even
guy
though it,
back in the day that bought like an apartment in Sweden or something, and he paid
well,
Bitcoin for it. He was all like stoked, like, yeah, I paid Bitcoin for an apartment. And then
yeah,
he looked back on it, he's like, I just paid like $80 million for an apartment. Like, what did I do? Like, why did I do that? That's such a
yeah.
dumb thing to do, And I have
Marty
this.
Malmy did that.
Oh, is that who it was?
Well, he's one of them. I know there was another story I saw of somebody else who did that, like one of the early Bitcoin purchases, and he bought an apartment.
Yeah.
But Marty Malmy did that, where he's working with Satoshi directly, making the website, early Bitcoin years, and when it had some dollar value, I don't know how much he's sitting on, but he parted with some, and he bought himself a nice condo or a apartment
Right.
in downtown where he lived. Because why not?
Right. Yeah. Who
It's
cares?
worth something now, and I got a lot of it. So good for him. He got his apartment. And
Yeah.
yeah, in hindsight, you're like, wow, I spent 100 million or whatever crazy thing it is
Yeah.
now on on that apartment.
Yeah.
But
Well, I mean, think about
whatever.
all those clowns on Silk Road, dude, or like
Oh yeah,
paying 50 Bitcoin for a bag of pot or something. You're just like,
pot and alpaca socks and
yeah, like
whatever.
what are you doing, dude? Like, do you
Yeah.
realize like how much money you just like fluffed away so you can get high? Like, it's just astonishing, man.
We'll
Like,
all
talk,
go through that. In the future, we're all going to look back on, like the miners I bought. It's like, okay, special deal if you pay in Bitcoin. So I'm like, okay,
yeah,
even
who cares?
though so I buy them in Bitcoin and I immediately buy more Bitcoin to replace it. But in my head, I'm looking at the sats there.
Right.
And in hindsight, I'll remember, oh, I spent $1 million on miners.
Yeah. Right.
Even
Exactly.
though in
Dude, like
fiat, it was a good
there's some
deal.
guy in Prague who was playing guitar, and I think I gave him like a 2,500 sat tip or something like that. I'm like, I just gave that guy a $2,500 tip for noodling on his guitar in a parkway somewhere. Like, what
Which
am I
he'll
doing?
turn around and spend for,
Yeah, so he can go
a
buy a
meal.
bag of Coke, dude. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like he's gonna go buy a cheeseburger with it, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
what did I do, man?
Zapping
So
on Noster, it's like I look at like,
yeah,
oh,
like
I'll
here's a
zap
$20
it
tip. Here's a
21
$20.
sats, 21
Yeah,
sats, 21 sats. And in hindsight, I'll be like, I was tipping people for a meme, $21.
yeah, right.
But it's the circular economy and we're contributing to it. And it's kind of
Yeah,
relative now. If you're still stacking, okay, you're also contributing to a circular economy, and that's good.
yeah. I don't
Um,
know. I mean, I hope Samson Mao's God candle show up pretty quick here, so it'll feel
when
less
God Candle.
right. Well, I mean, it's like if you're spending Sats and Bitcoin's $1 million a coin, you go, it's not so bad. But when you're spending Sats now, and you go like, I know I'm fractioning off like a massive amount of wealth right now. Like it's sort of painful to spend Sats right now. And like I said, if I get back from this Bitcoin conference and I've actually lost Sats from going to the conference, I'm just going to be like, oh, damn it, I knew I shouldn't have done that. I mean, it's not huge compared to the rest of what I'm holding, and yet it's like it's still just I don't know. So kind of like your nightmare, I was just like, I once I did it, I was like, okay, cool. And then I had a little bit of stress about the withdrawal not being timely, and all and the Zaprite window, like the payment window closing, and it still hadn't settled on chain. And I was like, well, how are they going to honor this, or are they not going to honor it, or are they going to how's it all going to work? Because I don't transact in BTC a lot unless it's lightning and like little ding dong, I bought a book or a cup of coffee or something. But when you're kind of moving more size around, I'm just like, I don't transact that way. I either buy it and hold it, or I don't do it. Right. And so this
Mhm.
was one of my first transactions where it was something in relative size where I was just like, I don't like the way this feels. But once I got through the short term stress of like making sure the transaction cleared and not really understanding how Zaprite works in the background, and how vendors might accept these payments if you're outside of the payment window and all this kind of stuff, then it hit me and I was like, oh wait, I just gave away 4.8 million sats. Like,
Yeah, speaking of dreams, um, I ran across this thing on X last night. There's this guy Josh Mann. I guess he
well,
used to work Solomon Brothers, and now
anyone paying any attention to this nonsense, dude, this is driving me crazy. But please
he
finish your thought.
weird. So just I don't know what to think of it. Weird story though, but he claims he had this dream or these dreams where he posted in November that on Pi Day 3/14, which was yesterday, that the price of Bitcoin would be $84,000, and that if it was, it confirmed something about other parts of his dream about the future of stuff. And then lo and behold, it was that, and so
Or
people
was
are
it?
all like,
Because
"What?"
if I remember correctly, and I'm trying not to pay any attention to this, and I'm seeing people just losing their shit over this. I'm like, oh my God, I'm living in ding dong world right now. But the thing is, they said he said it's going to close precisely at $84,000, right? It did not close precisely at $84,000.
Well, it
Like,
was bouncing around right at 84,100 or something.
well, I mean, like, what was his original tweet? Because
It
that
was a response to Magoo. What's that guy's name?
Magoo Hodl.
Anyway, no, it was Bitcoin Magoo. Uh, I follow him. I don't really know him that well, but he's a Bitcoiner, and it was like he posted something about his dream, and then Magoo wrote something kind of a little snarky back, like, oh, okay, like in what reality is this? And he said, hey, let's make a bet. I'll pick the day, you pick the wager. And I don't think it was a real bet. Like, I don't know that there was a response to it. Like, here's a bet,
Right.
but it was a proposed offer to bet that on Pi Day the price would be 84,000. Um, and then now there's swirling like futurist visions about it.
Right. What
Um,
was the guy's name again? What's his handle?
Josh Mann,
Oh, Josh.
Josh Mandel 6, uh, 2 L's 6. I
Okay,
will.
let's see. I want to read his original post. Where is his goddamn original post?
Uh, uh,
84K base. Let's see. When 84 becomes the base, Bitcoin calls will melt their face, blah, blah, blah. I hope that I've established a little credibility with a few of you so that this will help. This time is different. The fourth turning is upon us. Thursday, 11, 7, 116.25 and 314.25. Predicted a price 100% more specific than normal. Like, these people are just giving this guy so much credit for, like, he just made a guess. But what I want to see is, like, as far as I understand, he made the prediction that it would be precisely $84,000.
well, it crossed that at some point. Given Bitcoin's volatility, there's no way it would sit at that number for a while. But
I guess not. I don't know, dude. I just think it's like, I mean, I don't know. Like, listening to people put any faith or stock into this, I just go, that's straight up just mystical thinking, right? And like attributing something to this guy's dream and the fact that he tweeted about it is just like, I go, come on, man. Like, what? All right, well, live in mystical world all you want. Like, go have fun with it. I mean, if people are just kind of poking around with it and thinking, "Oh, this is I know better," but I'm just going to kind of tag along because it's kind of fun to talk about. That's
right,
one. But there seems to me to be a lot of people that are taking it really seriously. Like, this predicted, and this means, and I'm just like, what are you talking about? That doesn't mean shit, dude. That guy made a guess and it came out. Like, that's it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, people cling and hope to the whenever Samson Mao uh, posts about $1 million or whatever, and people need that, like they're craving this. When's the God candle coming? Like when does the liquidity dry up? When do the OTC desks dry up?
Right.
Um, and so it's sort of like you need that validation. If you're looking for symbolism in the world, you're going to see it.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
and so people are looking for it, and when news comes out, it's like this validates it because it validates what I want to believe. So it's right. Um, I According to his dream, and he's vague about it, but that if the price was 84K on Pi Day, that then Bitcoin would be running the tables, and that's all he left it at, like running the
Yeah,
tables. What does running the tables mean? I think for him, he's clarified slightly that what that would mean, if he's correct, since he's correct, according to his prediction, that um, that yeah, liquidity dries up, and Bitcoin now starts seeing these crazy God candle things happening. So that's
yeah.
what people want to hear. People want to
Right,
hear that.
100%. Well, I mean, I posted a tweet about it. It said, "What I have gleaned from piecing together bits of noise on X the last couple of days is that a lot of people don't understand how to read candle opens and closes, and I imagine they also find lots of interesting things in clouds and stains." I mean,
Hmm.
I don't know, dude. Like, I guess if it's just a fun little thing, who knows? I don't know. I put as much stock in his predictive capabilities as I put in your ability to fly. It's just nonsense. But
Well, Travis had said or told us or told me, he commented on one of our videos once. He said that like reading charts and making predictions, it's like astrology for men.
oh yeah,
Um,
one
and
hundred percent.
we've talked about that before, where like all the you know analyzing, it's like, oh, it's this trend, it fits this model, it's this thing, and there's a chart of all the look for the head and shoulders, look for the this and that, and oh,
Yeah,
these things going on. This is a this is a that. I can read the future, and yeah, the past is an indicator.
right.
It's
Well,
astrology.
yeah, I mean, and the way most people do it is, I mean, that's like when I was coming up with my little trade algorithm thing, like I went and looked at the financial research on, things like chart patterns and, support and resistance lines and trend lines and all this kind of stuff. Trend lines, zero credibility. Pattern recognition, zero credibility. The problem is it's all user dependent, right? So someone can say, hey, this is head and shoulders. Someone else can go, oh no, that's a classic cup and handle if you start from here. And this person will say this, and this person will say this. But it's all how you interpret, it's basically seeing a face in a cloud, right?
Yeah.
But what did come out from the research is things like moving averages and exponential moving averages can give you some insight into the direction of a volume of trade, right?
Yeah.
And things like support and resistance lines actually have research backing behind them. And
Yeah.
there's a psychological component to it because people, like, when Bitcoin came up against the previous all-time high, you could watch the chart bounce right along. That's a resistance line, but that's also a psychological thing. Like, people go, there's 50% of the traders out there go, oh my God, we're right at the peak and it's probably not going to break the peak. I'm going to sell right now. Whereas there's other people that go, it's going to blow through that peak. I can't wait. And so they buy. And so you end up with this like sideways price action right at that level, But same thing happens at other psychological support and resistance levels as it goes up or down. So that's why things like price discovery are so fun, because no one has any sort of indicator where it's going, which is why I solely rely on moving averages to go, well, the average number of sells is accelerating or the average number of buys is accelerating. And from that information, you can actually glean some actionable information from it and go, this is a good time to buy probabilities wise, or this is not a good time to buy probabilities wise. Doesn't mean I can't predict the future any better than anybody else. What I can tell is based on a simple moving average of buys and sells versus an exponential moving average of buys and sells over a short enough time frame, it gives you actionable information over the course of a week or two.
Mm-hmm.
And that strategy has, it's a 60-70% hit rate when I do it, and it's about 80% hit rate if you go back and do a historical analysis on it. So there's still, even me trying to execute that strategy has a lesser hit rate than the historical. Like, if you just went and said, apply this strategy here, go, and it goes, okay, about 80% of the time it's going to be right. I go, okay, somehow I can't seem to achieve that level of accuracy, but it the it's more like the power law guys, and it's all just noise at the end of the day. There's some
Yeah.
very simple rudimentary things that have some evidentiary support from the finance literature that you can look at and go, well, if you're going to try and come up with something, unless you're getting into quantitative trading, which most people are not, you're never going to be able to beat DCA. So just
Yeah.
I run with it a little bit. I still use it because it works for me in terms of timing buys, right? Like right now, people say, hey, did you buy this dip? I go, nope, because my little algorithm said don't buy right now. When my algorithm says buy is when I'm going to add to my stack.
Yeah.
This,
Yep.
despite the fact that I just gave 4.8 million sats away.
Yeah. When the price is just steadily trending up, I just DCA to not psych out about it. When the price is kind of steadily going down, I aim to buy dips. And that's quite imperfect, but I don't try not to psych out about that either. So,
Yeah. Well,
speaking
we'll
of
see.
Vegas,
Oh, yeah.
we're going. So, just to go
Yeah.
on that news, the device, um, we'll have a booth.
Yeah. And I'm going to have a trunk load of those.
MicroSeed.
I'm going to be driving a trunk load of those things across the country to get there. So this should be interesting.
So we're going to be in Bitcoin Vegas. We got
Yeah.
MicroSeed. We're going to
Yeah, you
show it
can
off,
come check us
promote it.
out at the Bitcoin Vegas in the Bazaar area on the Trade Expo floor. Talking to the guys at BTC Media, the people that run the Bitcoin Vegas conference, they're anticipating 32,000 visitors this year. So it's going to be pretty awesome, man.
And that's
Uh,
good. When the market's ripping, it attracts all kind of general attention. When a lot of people, they're like, "Oh, Bitcoin's crab walking," and I'm just not as attentive to it lately, or I'm not as enthused, and so it could affect numbers. But
yeah,
it's every year it grows and grows. So
yeah. Well, what I can say from historical stuff, the Bitcoin price tends to nuke right after every Bitcoin conference. So I don't know how good they are for BTC, but well, maybe this year will be different, right?
yeah, we'll see.
I don't know. It should be a fun time. I'm a little like leery of the idea that I'm going to be tied to a booth for 10 hours or 12 hours a day and just kind of like sitting there like the rest of those people I see at those booths. So I don't know. I'm also thinking about running an ad in the local Vegas, classifieds or something like a Craigslist or whatever. See if we can find some attractive people to come and buttress our our
Yeah.
presentation a little bit. But I don't know. We'll see.
Well, we'll be on, and it'll be an experience.
Yeah,
So
it's
be
gonna be
in
great.
there.
Robin Sayer's gonna be there too, so he can
Yeah.
come by. Hopefully, I'm going to do an interview with him. And now I'm trying to plan my trip. I want to go visit him in Austria before Prague. So just trying to figure out a flight across the Atlantic and getting all that stuff because you can't pay those flights with Bitcoin yet. So it's like, oh God,
Hmm.
it's brutal. But yeah, I might have a booth in Prague as well. I reached out to the people at BTC Prague to see what like a little table or something would cost to be out there. Hopefully, it's less than 4.8 million sats, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. But yeah,
Yeah,
no, it'll be fun to demonstrate this, and I keep playing with it. I love the the tight tolerances and the quality. It just is it's the best seed stamping tool out there right now. And I know there's other good ones and options, but folks, this is the best. This is the best one. So
thank you so much. Yeah. Well, oddly enough, I've now released titanium coins.
yeah,
So each kit is now shipping with one titanium coin, one nylon coin, and one heavy steel coin, in addition to the 3 stainless washers that you get. So
yeah,
yeah. So there's all kinds of options coming, and the thing that's neat is like you'll be able to buy 10 titanium washers for about $70, which is about the cost of some of our competitors' single plate. So you can have a lot of titanium floating around with a lot of very, very valuable information, and it's pretty pretty reasonable as far as I'm concerned. Like I'm not making any money off selling those titanium coins at all. Like that's basically where my cost is. So I'm trying to keep it reasonable, and there's free shipping if you just order the washers by themselves. I'll send it to you first class mail. So here you go.
yeah. If steel's not shiny enough or melts at too low of a temperature for you, titanium's even better.
Yeah. Well, there's no reason to not use it at that point because you can have it in titanium, lightweight, super super durable. You can have it in nylon. I'm been working on some promotional videos to talk about the benefits of stamping your seed phrase in nylon, and I'll get the titanium stuff, the information out there, and just keep making videos and stuff like that. And I'm going to be starting a new video series either Monday or Tuesday whenever I get my backdrop down and get my little teleprompter set up. But yeah, big things coming.
Steel steel will melt at 15,000 degrees or less, and titanium's twice that. Not going to melt on you,
Yeah,
and it's
exactly.
light and shiny. And
Yeah,
heck, how many of these are you going to need to stamp out as So if you got a jig like this, you can do as many as you want. And if you need a handful of them, maybe titanium's worth it. If you don't
yeah,
mind steel, like steel's great, good enough for you. Cheap as hell, a
yeah.
box of washers. So
Yeah, it's basically free. I mean, once you buy the tool, that's I think the beauty of the whole system though is like once you have it, like there's almost unlimited uses for being able to record information in a durable format like that. And having 240 characters of God knows what, you could put your last will and testament on it, literally. I mean, if you can figure out how to get your last will and testament down in 240 characters or less, then it can be inheritable, Not to mention if you got multi sig or something like that, like you can have all the signatures down. I mean, you could have your own multi sig solution. You go, oh, this key I'm going to keep here in the house. This key I'm going to put in my cabin in Montana, and this key I'm going to keep in a safe deposit box in a bank in New York. And so if you get subject to the wrench attack and you go, hey man, this is a multi-sig, I can't get to any of this shit. I mean, if you want to fly around to Montana and New York and then go talk to the bank officials about why it is I need to get to my thing with a gun to my head, then we can
right,
do that. But you
yep,
can also have disposable wallets. Like you could, there's people that do throw wallets for like bus attacks and shit like that in Latin America. Someone comes and mug them, they give them a wallet that's got, $50 in it or something like that. And they go, cool, and they take off. You could have something like that. You go, hey man, all my major Bitcoin stack is, but I do have this one wallet I use for, buying trinkets and doodads. It's got $5,000 in Bitcoin with it. You can take that, and that might be enough to get them off your back and not kill you, So, but you
yeah,
could have that set up on, 50 different washers. You could have $1,000 worth of Bitcoin on 50 different wallets and just carry whichever one you want that day. You go, oh, this is my $1,200 wallet. Here you go. I got mugged. There's Bitcoin. Don't kill me. And
Yeah.
I mean, there's just unlimited options for this. So yeah, it's
You
really
don't
cool.
you don't have to project a big steel plate. You don't have to have a um, like, wow, it's obvious what this is.
Right.
The obscurity of a washer is incredible, and
Yeah.
it doesn't project much of anything. And the 240 characters, that's using both sides of the washer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you
Exactly.
stamp one side, you got 120 characters. You can turn it right around. Use the other side, 240 characters, both sides of a washer,
Yeah.
and as many washers as you need or want. So hey,
Yeah. Make a
unlimited.
spare.
You don't have to buy a $20 plate, or I've seen like special
$40 plates.
titanium
Yeah.
engraved plates for like $80. Like
Right.
your holy grail of a plate. It's kind of like, is that what you want? Because
Right.
that's not obscure. That's
Yeah.
like,
It's definitely not obscure. And good luck taking it on a plane. I mean, you might be able to get
no.
away with it. They might. But I look at it like the might is for me. I go, if anything can go wrong, it will, and at the worst possible moment. I'm very much into Murphy's law. And if you just happen to be the guy who goes, you know what, I'm going to take my seed phrase out of the country because things here are getting kind of dodgy, and I'm going to throw my seed phrase into my bag, and then I'm going to carry that bag on, and then some TSA snoop goes, hey, what's that? I need to look at that. You go, no, I don't want you to look at my very valuable piece of metal that you can read, no problem. Like
Mhm.
because if you figure out what it is, or if they impose some sort of capital controls and go, hey, that's money, isn't it? No. Well, you're not allowed to carry more than $10,000 out of the country. Looks like you're trying to carry more than $10,000. We need you to open up that wallet to show us what's in it, so we make sure that you're not violating, export controls or whatever it is, or currency capital controls. And as we were mentioning earlier, if it's down to $200, like, well, you just can't carry your Bitcoin wallet around, or you can have a little nylon washer put in your prison purse if you're really worried about it, and
Right.
get on the
Yeah.
airplane bathroom and fish around a little bit, and you got yourself your seed phrase back. So I don't know, man. There's a
Yeah.
lot of options here.
If you're just trying to travel and get somewhere, cross a boundary, a border, and you realize you're going to be going through a TSA or metal detectors or all kinds of whatever, and you're like, okay, I'm going to have it stamped on a nylon washer on a medallion dipped in plastic or silicon or whatever,
Yeah,
a little necklace. Doesn't trigger a metal detector, doesn't look like anything but something chintzy that you wear around your neck if you want. It's your little nothing medallion.
yep,
Um, and you're not going to be walking through the valley of hellfire. It's a nylon washer, but you can get through TSA easy.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so,
And you can avoid all sorts of weird control things. Do Kwon could still have his Bitcoin right now if he had
yeah,
had an nylon washer instead of a Trezor up his hoo hoo.
he could have
So,
stuffed a nylon washer up there, and it could have gotten through, perhaps. Versus,
oh, 100%.
Trezor. I don't
Yeah.
recommend trying it, but don't shove a ledger or a Trezor up there. That hurts, I would think.
Yeah. I'd have to imagine. I don't know. I think I treat that orifice as one way out,
Yeah,
but some people, to each his own. Different strokes for different folks. I don't know. But if you if you know you might be getting sent to prison, and like there's that guy right now who's being held in contempt of court because he's not giving up his Bitcoin. He's just telling him to go GFY, right? But the thing is, had he not stored that information on his computer, had he stored it on something, oh, I don't know, like a nylon washer or a titanium washer or something like that, they never would have known he had it. And then
Mhm.
he could have taken it with him to prison if he really wanted to. He could have just said, okay, well, I guess I'm going to prison now. I don't want anybody to get my Bitcoin. So I'm going to put this somewhere where people can't look. And then I'm going to just hang on to it.
Yeah. The new hardcore Bitcoiner self custody fetish.
I hear
How much Bitcoin can you self custody in your own
that.
special little way?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, that's what it's all about, self sovereign custody of your own Bitcoin, right? How do you protect your keys? And I go, well, I've just opened up a world of opportunities for you to protect your keys. So your biggest risk is losing it. And if you take care of it right, even if you lose it, no one's going to know what the fuck it is. It's just going to end up in a landfill somewhere and it's gone, right? No one's going to dig it out of the trash bin and go, oh, somewhere in here is, $1 million worth of Bitcoin. It's just going to be a thing that got disposed of. So,
Hmm.
yeah, keep a backup, keep a spare, keep it on you. And yeah, that's my 2 cents for why
Yeah.
MicroSeed is the way to go.
MicroSeed, the hottest, newest seed stamping tool in the world. You'll see it at Vegas. You can order online, 21e15.com.
Yeah, go now
Can
for
get a
all.
hammer if you want.
Yeah, no one's
Get your
watching.
engraved hammer.
Yeah, this will be for the people watching the playback. Yeah,
21e15.com.
yeah, the bitch and hammer. All right, man. Well, that's a pretty good show for today, I think.
Yep. It's been an
Right.
hour 15. So Vegas is a little ways away. We'll be talking more about it, of course, but
Yeah,
every week brings more interesting, fun news in the Bitcoin world and everything else that we talk about. So
yeah, can't wait. Until next
cool.
week.
All right. We'll see you.
All right, take it easy. See you, Fritz.
Bye.